Good
Good
morning.
morning.
So, how's everyone out there today? How are you today? Uh, we're getting ready.
I am good. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I missed you last week. Yeah. So,
Same.
good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Dark Roast. I'm Donna Stroll, and this is, as always, my beautiful and talented Rose Short. And today, our topic of discussion is actually going to be about forum boards and communities and how to crush your ethical marketing in those areas ethically. Because, yeah, as always, we always like to tie everything to being an ethical marketer because there's too many scam artists out there. There's too many con artists and grifters and all those people. And you don't want to be that guy. No one wants you to be that guy either. It's not good for your soul. You know,
You don't
even
want
if
to
you
sound
have
like that
soul,
guy.
it's still not good for you. It's not good for your mental well being.
Exactly.
All right. So, forums and discussion boards. Now, I mean, you can sort of roll your eyes and go, "Oh my God, that's so last century," or think about it as like that's where people just drop their links and scam their fly by night things. But that's not actually true because a lot of forum boards and communities now are very strict about how they run them. They have a lot of moderators. It's not just a free for all. It's not Lord of the Flies up in there anymore. I mean, there is still some that are, but a lot of them are very well maintained. Um, so you can't just dump your links. You can't just, do a flyby and, drop all your crap and hope that somebody's paying attention because you'll get deleted, you'll get removed from the community and so on and so forth, right? So it's actually not a bad place to go and hang out and really share your opportunities and your information if you do it right.
Yeah, most people are going to forums because it's somewhere they trust. Like Reddit is huge because there's a lot of trust involved with Reddit. And a lot of that comes from the community they built and whatnot. So if you come into a community that's well established and you about, say making money online and you start spamming all your posts to everybody, all your links and whatnot. And most of the members will probably have either been through those or had some experience, or just know that you're going about it the wrong way. Like you said, you're going to get removed.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that UGC is so popular is because 78% of people trust peer recommendations over brand ads, which is huge, right? And that's why affiliate marketing is such a vast and growing uh, income stream, because there's trust there. But
Yeah.
for there to be trust there, you got to act appropriately, right? You got to be the one who's actually helping instead of just, again, slamming everybody with your links, and looking at it in a sustainability sense versus just the instant, short term, like, oh, I got to click here and there and kind of thing.
Yeah. Like we've said before, you don't get into affiliate marketing because I need to make $1,000 by the end of the week.
Yeah.
Not realistically. I mean, you might get sold that, but that's shitty sales tactics is what that is.
Yeah.
You get into it to build something over the long haul, not the short term. So where can you find these online communities to do that promotion, but in the right way? So Reddit, like you mentioned, they've got entrepreneur, frugal living, personal finance, digital nomad, all those kinds of things. So there's got lots of sub communities or subreddits that they have. You just have to find the right ones for you. I mean, if you're in the health and wellness, I'm sure there's a million of those as well. Many of the subreddits allow resource sharing if it's helpful and it's not spammy, right? So you can share resources and information in those spaces if you do it the right way. Core is another one. It's a question and answer kind of community. People drop questions and then there's answers. You will see a lot of AI answers drop back. Don't be that guy. We know, right? But you can answer relevant questions. You can link to your blogs, to share that information, or you can take excerpts from a blog that you've written and then share maybe a link to that instead of a link directly to your program or whatever. And you need to put disclosures, right? No matter what. Then there's obviously the Facebook groups. That's where your community comes in. right? Because again, it's not scrolling, it's not live social media feeds, it's actually community. So it's much more um, static than, say, like your social media where you're scrolling through super fast. And then there's always the niche specific forms, right? That's where you sort of go online and you go, whatever your niche is, plus form, you know, or your topic, whatever it is you're interested in. And then you can, and discussion board, and then you can find that information. Like with Google, if you put in like your words with a plus in between, it will search for those things within a string of comments, which is very helpful because it will specifically look for those words, but also how they connect to each other. Um, yeah, so there's examples like Warrior Form, right? Or Geek Zone, Stack Exchange, which is a tech one, Baby Center for parenting, Cruise Critic for, yeah, well, girl. Cruise Critic for travel. So there's ways you can find very specific forms for your niche just by doing some Google searching. And then there's Discord, which is huge, right? There's lots of different ones in there. And then obviously your specialized membership ones, where you might have to pay to get in, but there's still forum boards and communities and discussion boards within those as well. And they don't have to be like you have to pay $1,000 to get in. It might be like a $5 subscription fee or something like that.
Yeah.
A lot.
Uh, so why is all this important? Well, some quick stats because we love our data. 66% of consumers make a purchase after reading a recommendation on a forum. So this came from Nielsen, which is like the king of what does the community, what's going on with the community. Forum threads have up to 3 times longer dwell time than regular social posts, which means more eyeballs on your content and it's there longer. And then conversion rates from niche forums can be 2 to 3 times higher than from broad social media platforms. And it's kind of a quality beats quantity theme, but that's why we also say, like, make sure you're talking to your ideal client. And it's hard to do on social media sometimes because sometimes you don't know who your ideal client is, or you haven't quite hashed out your messaging, or your stuff's getting lost in the algorithm because you're not doing all the things that Daddy Zuck wants you to do to push your content. So forums, niche forums, could be a great way to, if somebody's there, they're already looking for the information you have versus you're hoping they stumble upon it.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah, it's
So,
basically hyper directed traffic for free.
yep. Which is it. And it's not a super scrolly scroll, right? People are,
Mm-hmm.
you look at, usually with forms and stuff, a lot of times there's like headers, right? Or it's used as a search engine. I don't know how many times when I'm searching for something, Reddit is part of that search,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's, or Quora is another one, right? And they
Yeah.
also, Quora, I don't know if Reddit does it because I'm not subscribed to that, but I do see it when I'm searching. But Quora, I am actually subscribed, and they send you like feeds of stuff. So if you've looked at something or asked questions about something else before, they'll send you feeds in that. Even if you're not subscribed to any specific thing, they'll send you a general feed of things that you've looked at, which means that your customers are also receiving those feeds in their as an email newsletter, just a quick, blip, 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 which means you're getting free advertising, free email advertising if you're doing it right, which is super awesome.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Just don't get banned.
Again, yeah. So some key strategies that don't suck. Join as a real human, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to spend time. You got to engage without the links, without the spamming, without the trying to share stuff. If you're going to share information, make sure it's advice, real advice. Answer the questions. Be a resource. The same thing we say when you're in a Facebook group, right? Be a resource. You can think sort of the 80-20 rule, 80% value, 20% subtle promotion, not hammerhead promotion. It has to be subtle. Because again, these are communities that are meant for sharing information, not for, selling. That's not their primary purpose, right? So
Yes. And that's why you gotta choose the right ones.
Yeah.
So, obviously you want to choose ones that are aligned with your niche and with what you have available, right? Don't join a freaking cruise forum if your theme is financial advising. Check the rules. Rules are huge. Many forums do allow affiliate links as long as it is disclosed. And as long as it's not your first post, right? Like, you don't want to come in like, "Hi, this is me. This is what I do. Here's all my links to my stuff." Like, they're not going to approve
Right.
that.
You're not the
Moder
Kool-Aid guy.
Exactly. Yes. Um, Moderators will shut that down so fast. And then you want forums that are, it kind of, same with Facebook groups. You want high engagement and active. Moderators help keep the spam low, which means you get better views. But so you want to make sure you're looking for those kind of things. Like, if there's not engagement in the group, then it's the same as social media. If you're not getting engagement on social media, you're not going to grow. You're not going to get your information in front of the right people. So make sure when you're doing your research that, like, these groups or these posts, these forums are active and that people are actually commenting and want to be there.
Yeah. Because, you only have a finite amount of time. So you don't want to spend it speaking to a void. Um,
Yeah.
it's just, it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
So, and then signature linking, if it's allowed, right? So it's simple and not spammy. So, want my free guide, or, you can follow me, follow my blog, those kinds of things where you're not trying to sell, you're offering either a resource or your newsletter for information, or your blog for information, or you could even put your social media links in there, I suppose. But again, make sure that you're following the rules, because maybe it's not allowed. And always, if you're going to be using links, don't use pardon me, your standard affiliate links. Make sure you're shortening them. Make sure you're personalizing them as much as you can, like we've talked about with Bitly, or what's the other one that you use? Something short link or something like that. I can't remember.
I think it was link shortener, but yeah.
Yeah. So, there's ones out there, they're free. They allow you to track it as well to see if that information is coming back to you.
Yeah. Or even Linktree, right? Like, Linktree lets you put all of them in the same spot. And then again, like, they can go for one and be like, "Oh, well, what's this other one?" Right. And like, Linktree is a great way because everyone can remember Linktree. A lot of
Yeah.
people use it. And you can have multiple niche themes there. Or Stand Store, I think, is another one. Like, any of
Yeah.
those programs, like, will let you do that. But again, like most people know, Linktree is probably, you're advertising something, so make sure it's allowed.
Yeah.
And then be sparing with your links. We've talked about this before. And, if every blog post, like every paragraph ends with an affiliate link, it's going to get overwhelming, right? It's going to be too much data. It's going to be data overload. So only use the relevant ones, the ones that add value, of course, disclose, like we talked about. But you're far better off if you have a lot of links, like we just talked about, helpful articles or a resource page that contains, like, maybe your main link, or again, a link tree, which would go to everything. Just make sure that you're not getting too over the top with dropping those links in or sending those links out, because then it does, even if you're not trying to, it does still come across as spammy.
Yeah. If every time that you respond, it's like, this is what you need to do and go here, people are going to stop paying attention, because they know it's a sales pitch, not actual service. Um, you've got to come with an open hand, right? You got to come with a giving hand, not a taking hand, especially in communities, because you are, like you said, be building trust, building community. You want to be seen as a person that they can go to, not a person that they want to get away from. So, and that's about building authority, right? You're building your authority, not just spamming out links. You want to share your tutorials, or answer FAQs, or even create a short how-to response. Like, if somebody comes up, that links back to maybe a full blog post. So that's where I say you could take maybe an excerpt of a blog post, especially if it's really relevant to somebody's question, that you can pop them back to your full blog post. you're trying to create value first content, support and value, so that when you do give a link, it feels more like you're giving them something more. And you're not just trying to pitch them, you're trying to give them some additional support, and you're not just trying to sell them on the next big thing. And that's really important, especially in communities, because again, if your friend came over every time and was, oh yeah, like this is the best whatever health thing that they're on, and you should totally buy it, and here I've brought some samples for you, and here, at every single time, it was that we're not talking about that, Doris. Like, that's how, so you have to think about that kind of action when you go into these spaces. You're going to visit. And if you're bringing, your Tupperware party or your whatever party every single time, they're not going to want to see you anymore. So it's up to you to actually lead with value. Share some information, drop tips, and they don't have to be big, right? You can drop small tips and not expect anything back from it. It's okay to do that, because then when it comes time for them to buy, you'll have already started, you've already seeded them with your information and your knowledge and your trust.
Yep. And that's where, being a connector is super important, right? So instead of just being like, oh yeah, this is what I did, you should do this, you know, hey, you should check this out. Like, how many of your friends have called you and been like, dude, you need to check out this new restaurant, it's amazing, or something like that, right? It sounds way more natural, and it's just a better way than being like, okay, well, I get this all the time with people who pop into my DM where they're like, oh, okay, well, I understand that you said that things are going good with your business, but what does your open rate look like? Or what is your conversion rate? Where they do this annoying, like, active listening thing of repeating your message back, which doesn't work in text. It's freaking annoying, and stop it. But that'll automatically switch you off, because then it's not a like, oh, that sounds amazing. Hey, have you looked into this? This might be helpful. It's now a robotic, like, I am getting to my sales pitch because this is my script, right? So keep it natural and just connect people with resources versus trying to make the sale. It'll make things so much easier. And make sure it fits in the convo. Like, yeah, you can be a walking billboard for things you're passionate about. You should be, right? Like, I will talk dogs at some point with every person I meet. I guarantee it, because I love my dogs and it's what I do. But I'm not going to just slip it into the conversation if we're talking about like someone's bankruptcy or something like that. I'm not going to be like, well, that sucks. By the way, here's my dog. Right? Like, make sure that
Yeah.
it's a natural flow.
Yeah. And I mean, if you don't know if it's natural or not, you can literally record yourself as a two-part conversation.
Oh.
And here, does this sound natural to me? And if you are comfortable with AI, you can literally have them play the part of a customer or a client and have that conversation with them, and they can tell you, and you just, you preface it with like, this is my script, this is how I would do about this, I need you to act as a client who's maybe on the fence about it, or as a community, and tell me what you think. And they'll break it down for you, and offer suggestions and stuff like that, because there's ways to utilize AI, and these are the kinds of ways that we use AI to benefit us, not take over for us. So but yeah, even just having that conversation out loud, it's the same thing as reading. When you're editing a book, you read it out loud, because what sounds perfectly fine in your head, and then you read it out loud and you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right at all. And that's because you've already skipped to the end. You know the end, you know what's happening. But if you read it out loud, you might actually start to hear how that's not really, I would never say that in actual conversation. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so there
one of
are
the
some.
things the president or a real estate team used to do was every meeting he'd be like, cool, who are you and who do you serve? So that, because we all had our superhero personas and whatnot. And so that way it was like, oh, I'm Rose, I'm the Red Queen, I help luxury properties, but also first time home buyers. Because if it doesn't sound like you believe who you are or what you do, no one's going to believe it.
Yeah. And I mean, when you're new, that's going to be challenging because you are still finding your space. Now, some people slip into that space and they know right away, but a lot of people are not as confident, not as certain. And so it might take a little bit of time. So, again, practice that, right? You can
Mhm.
practice that. Um, and there are some actionable things that you can do, like right now, especially if maybe you've never jumped in the boards, or maybe you're in the boards and you're not having that success that you thought you should have. So, number one, like we talked earlier, join 3 to 5 high quality forums that are within your niche. All right. And, you want to look for ones with active threads, minimal spam. Take a look through them, right? Because a busy group doesn't necessarily mean a good group, right? If it's just a bunch of people dropping their links and no responses, that's a waste of your time and energy. You're just another grain of salt. You want to make sure that you add a profile picture and write a really human sounding bio, not a salesy bio. This is like a who you really are. And yes, you can add maybe a little bit about what you do professionally, but again, this is about trying to connect with people as a human being, not as a salesperson, right? So,
Yep.
and,
And then lurk and learn. Be creepy. Just kidding. Um, I mean, you can be creepy, but you want to observe, right? You want to see like how the group works. What kind of tone are people giving out? What do people complain about? What do they love? What gaps exist in the advice is being given. Things like that. Because if you join and then the first day you're answering a bunch of questions like an expert, it's gonna kind of come across as weird. Because usually when I see people respond to something, I'll look and I'm like, oh, you joined yesterday. Like, why would I listen to you, right? And it's not to say that they're not an expert in their field. It's just it's same with like a new Facebook account. Like, oh, let's be friends, and I'm like, no, you started your account a week ago. Like, this is not something I want part of. And it's the same thing. A lot of it's subconscious, but it does exist. So lurk about, be creepy, and not actually respond with creepy things, obviously, um, and plan accordingly.
yeah. And then, when you do start responding to questions, make sure that your responses are value based, that they're really helpful. And that's really simple to do is like, how would I help a friend with this? If somebody came up to me and said, you know what, I'm thinking about doing this, or I had this situation and I'm trying to do this, how would I answer that? I mean, now assuming you're in the group that's part of your niche, so you do have answers for that, right? So now you just have to think about how would I answer that for a friend? Because that's the goal. As always, that is the goal, right?
Yep.
Pretty
Yep.
straightforward.
And that's where your resources and your cheat sheets and your evergreen stuff comes in handy, right? It's like, it's kind of what I did with ice wellness, where it was like, okay, everyone seems to struggle with what temperature of water they should start in and how long they should do. So, like, let me break it down from a scientific perspective of like, this is what the data says. So start here. And then it's really simple when people start asking questions. It's like, hey, like, what are your goals? Okay, cool. Well, here's this cheat sheet, which kind of goes through the different goals and how cold therapy can help and how it might hurt those particular goals. And it's just a good way to have a really good go-to, or even that you could copy and paste information from to answer questions. And then you can have a YouTube link or an affiliate link or a social media channel link at the bottom of it, and then you're not being pushy, you're not being salesy, but then if they're curious enough, because you've helped them enough, then they're going to check it out.
Yeah, and having those resources and making them available at no charge, and it's not like just one big long sales pitch. Um, they're going to be thankful. I mean, I'm grateful for the free resources that I get that are actually helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep them and I have them bookmarked and all sorts of things because that's super useful. And I have gone back after time where I've used the resource and went, you know what? I actually could use some more information from this person. I'm willing to buy this now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But because they were helpful, they weren't pushy, and I was able to utilize what they gave me. That's a door that's been opened to the rest of their platform. Um, you know, uh, And we talked about setting up tracking links. So, you've got Bitly or Pretty Links or any of those. You want to track, especially if you're putting links in forms, you want to track which ones are actually doing something for you. So, because maybe a form board is busy, but it's just not going to hit for you. So, that doesn't mean you can't ever go there, but maybe you're not going to focus as much energy on there, especially if other ones are doing better somewhere else. Um, that's just, or maybe you need to switch up how you do that conversation there too, right? So that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's also where conversations with like, really active members, top contributors, even moderators can really come in handy because, you know, they're people too, and they're gonna recommend the people that they trust, right? So if not saying like be creepy and like make sure to get in with them, but if you can start yeah, exactly, if you can start the conversation organically and be able to build that relationship, then you're more likely to get, shout outs from them. We see it in Facebook groups a lot where like there's one person who is really active helping people where they'll be like, oh, this is your question. You got to talk to this person. They know what they're doing. And then you'll have 50 other people like, backing it up and saying, oh yeah, he helped me a lot or whatever it is. Or sticky posts, right? So similar to pinned posts, posts that'll stick around longer, and you could potentially be like the go-to person for that, assuming that those relationships have been had. So you know, people still scoff at network marketing, but it's still one of the biggest ways to build your business.
Yeah. And that's why this is one time where we say automate nothing, right? Because forms do not like bots. They're not down with the bots. And if you are seen as somebody who is either automating AI responses or doing those kinds of things, like you'll end up banned. They'll kick you out because you're just wasting time. And if you're a person who's literally just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks, or cast a gigantic net and see what you pull up, maybe that won't matter for you. But if you're actually trying to build a business and have sustainability, you want to make sure that you're doing this as humanly as possible. So yeah, it's going to take maybe a little bit more effort, but you need to be able to respond. So maybe you set time aside for, this is when I'm going to respond to comments or respond to questions or even ask questions, those kinds of things, to get involved. And then 3 hours later you go back in and set another time to go and see if there's anything that you need to reply to, and that sort of thing. So yes, it's maybe a little bit more intensive, but if you're already doing that on social media and shit scrolls so fast that it's gone in, like, at least here you have an opportunity to have something that's a little bit more evergreen and a little bit more consistent. So
For sure.
So there are a few things that you want to focus on, right? So you want to make sure that you are, like, if you're just starting out, or like I said, if this is something that you've been sort of doing but not really making your mark, you want to improve your link placement. You want to make sure that it flows as naturally as possible. Um, that's super important. You want, because these are real people you're talking to, and you want to work on your micro content, short replies. You don't need the great big huge response all the time. You can provide value in a shorter space so that people are reading it, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Then you want to test the types of content that get the most engagement. That is, that's your stats, that's your analytics, that's your all those kinds of things. Yes, that's your rose focus stuff. And because maybe it's your how to's, or maybe it's the list that you provide, or maybe it's the tools that you use. You don't know. So you're sharing all that information, and then by tracking your analytics, that's going to help you see which ones are doing the best and which ones reaching that particular audience that you're in. And then the last one is, you want to make sure that how you speak, the tone that you use, matches the forms that you're in. right? If you're in a financial form and it is very professional and solid based or something like that, you can't go in there being, yo, what's up? But maybe you're on a
What's up?
financial form that is like that, in which case then you can't be in there being all stuffy because it's not going to work for you. So, you want to make sure that your tone matches whatever you're in. And also maybe picking forms that match your tone will help that process as well.
For sure, because you don't want someone to come like decide they want to work with you and then find out that you're not the person they thought you were because you were matching the tone of the group versus the group matching your tone, right? So like we've had it before where we're like, oh, this person's really interesting, and then like we get on one-on-one with them and it's like, oh, well, you and I don't align on a lot of things.
Yep.
I don't think we should work together.
Yep. And that's always like, no matter what we talk about, you're allowed to not work with somebody. Money
Yeah.
should not be your only driving force, because you could get into a business relationship with somebody who does not match your energy, that does not match who you are, and it's going to be a relationship from hell, just like any other relationship. And the dollars aren't going to be worth it, because it's going to be exhausting and painful and frustrating. And in the end, they're probably going to say bad things about you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you
I
can
just
say
saw a
no.
post on Facebook from a dog trainer who, like, over the last year hasn't really been putting out content and whatnot. And he basically, like, came out and was like, yeah, so this is what happened. I partnered with this person and, to help with my business, and they didn't really go the direction I wanted, but they had full control of everything. And so I couldn't really separate from them. And like, it was a whole debacle, which they're now free of, thankfully. But yeah, it's super important that, you're making sure that there's synergy there, because you don't want to be tied to somebody who drives you insane or is trying to control things they shouldn't be controlling. Like, it can get really bad really fast, and when you're already doing everything else to run the business, you don't need that mental stress
Yeah,
as well.
exactly. So, I mean, bottom line, forms are not dead. They have evolved, right? They've changed in the way that they're done. I mean, it's no longer the bulletin board system, though I think you could probably still find those out there. Um,
Probably.
and so, whether you're going down a Reddit rabbit hole or you've joined a Discord group that is very niche down and specific, or you're just in a Facebook group, um, these are the places where conversation happens. And so you just have to be a helpful human being. You just have to be, bring the value, bring the reality, be your authentic self, like we talk about all the time. But this time, you can just do that, in a way that's actually having conversations and creating some evergreen opportunities for yourself as well.
Yeah.
Pardon me, I have this cough. It's driving me nuts.
I was getting there. That's why I had to drink the coffee real fast. I was like, oh, I'm about to start.
So that is it. And that is all actually for today.
Yes.
Let us know if you guys have ever if you've either considered going on the forum boards, or if you're active on that. Let us know what your experience has been or what your curiosities are. We'd love to know that. And if you have a favorite one, like I mentioned earlier in my post on Facebook, drop it below. Share the love. Let us know why you like that one. Maybe it's something that will help other people and, find a new home for them as well.
Yeah.
So what would you like to talk about next week? We did not actually do that, but you know.
So next week, I think we should talk about stories, because we've talked a little bit before about how to get Instagram stories to convert, but Facebook just announced that Facebook is going to allow monetization for Facebook stories. So I
Oh,
think
that's
it's a
interesting.
good time to revisit stories.
That sounds awesome. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll be good because yeah, I mean, I know Instagram was huge for the story thing, and everybody was like, "I'm selling in stories," and all of that sort of stuff. Um, so knowing that Facebook is now going to do the same thing is kind of cool, especially if you do a lot of stories. If you spend a lot of time doing that, anyways, now you can make some money on it. So that's super cool.
Yeah.
All right. That's it. That's all, folks.
If you found this helpful, please drop a comment, share, and hit that subscribe button. Your feedback is super helpful in growing this channel.
And of course, if you have any questions or if there's any specific thing that you would like us to talk about, drop that in the comments too. Happy Friday!
Happy Friday, everyone.